Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Burn and Learn. My name is Steve Mann, the host of the podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Chris. Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm the co-host of Burn and Learn.
We're excited here to be here tonight in downtown Leesburg at Rebellion Cigar Room. Our friends Justin and James have been very gracious with their hospitality, allowing us this beautiful platform in which to tape. So we're very appreciative of that. And we're very honored tonight to have two esteemed guests, Darryl Tapp and Kedric Golston. I will let you guys introduce yourselves.
Kedric Golston, pretty much a lifelong friend of Steve. Our daughters grew up together, and former professional athlete, played 11 years for the Washington football franchise, formerly known as the Redskins.
And then my name is Darryl Tapp, former teammate with Kedric Golston back in the Redskins, now Commanders. New to the threesome with Steve and Ked. Our wires are tight, so it's a pretty cool honor to be here. I'm also the D-line coach for the Washington Commanders.
Great. Happy to have both of these guys here today. Again, I've known Kedric for a long time, known Darryl for a few years as well. Our families have spent some time together, so very honored to have them here. And as we know on the podcast, we spend some time, our focus is coming together, sharing really great conversation, sharing a great stick, but also spending time educating ourselves as well as others around things that people have expertise in. So for us, it's an honor to be able to have a cigar with these two guys, but learn more about their profession, right? Like we see things on TV, we see the games, we see some of the practices, but love to have an opportunity to maybe dig a little deeper and find out some of the things that you can't necessarily see. So we're very happy to do that, but we would be remiss if we didn't take an opportunity to at least share a stick before we got started in conversation. So I think for tonight, I brought an Oliva Serie V Melanio Gran Reserva Robusto for Kedric, and Darryl, I have one as well. Chris, what do you have?
Same one.
Same thing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a quick cut and light, and while we're cutting and lighting, Chris, you want to just run through the flavor profile and some of the background on the cigar?
Yeah, so the background on the cigar, it's made by Oliva. It's the name of the cigar company. It's called the Serie V Melanio. It's a Nicaraguan, so the binder is what's inside. That's from Nicaragua, and then I meant the filler. And then the binder is what wraps the cigar together, and you have the wrapper. And so the filler and binder is Nicaraguan, and then I believe this is an Ecuadorian Sumatra, so it's a wrapper out of Ecuador. And these are handmade. I don't know how much you know about cigars, but these are hand rolled. And supposedly when a cigar is made, it touches the hands of like 200 or 300 different people before it even gets to you. Because when they cultivate the tobacco and then they age it and ferment it, and then they roll it by hand. So yeah, that's why it's called a premium handmade cigar.
So,
Yeah. And then
that's a little nerve-wracking. I wonder if them people wash their hands. 200 or 300 people.
What did you say, Chris? 200 or 300 people?
yeah, so that's the statistic I've read about. They said when you smoke a cigar, at least 300 people have touched your cigar.
And that's from seed to
Yeah.
box?
Yeah.
Or retailer?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think this one, for folks that, Chris and I have been smoking for a while, this is more of a medium, right? So should be pretty easy on the palate.
So what should we expect from this, in y'all's humble opinion, as somebody who's a learner, not necessarily a burner at this point of the cigar game?
I like that. I'm trying to think of the flavor profile. I think you'll get some sort of like maybe a little bit of chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, big man friendly. Yeah, I know what y'all doing. I like it.
So, and everybody has a different palate, so just we can talk about like what you taste. And so and one thing that I do is called retrohaling. You don't have to do it; it's a bit of a more advanced technique, but that's like so cigars you're not supposed to inhale,
Right.
but you're supposed to keep it in your mouth and then exhale. But what you can also do is you can keep it in your mouth and then shoot it out through your nose. And you're supposed to get like a more flavor from that and be able to tell. Like,
Translation: you will feel warmer. You will also start to cry because when that smoke comes out through your nose, if you're not used to it, it's a very awkward.
Yeah.
It's a very awkward experience. So you definitely want to have some
So
experience
I'm just
before
toasting the foot. That way you're going to even burn when you smoke it. And so how often do you guys smoke cigars?
For me, I would say sparingly at best. The cool thing to me is like some of the iconic moments you see in sports of like
Yeah.
after you win a big game or certain rivalries, you see teammates and coaches all enjoying a celebratory cigar. So that's kind of the, something I think is super cool and look forward to having one of those moments at some point in the near future where you can, have a cigar with a group of men, something that you accomplish, either on or off the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to your point, Kedric, I mean, I think, we've known each other for a long time, and I think I can count on maybe one hand, maybe this is the second or third time where we've had an opportunity to have a stick. I guess the first or second time was the three of us together right over here in
Yep.
Rebellion a few months ago, maybe a year ago. So, yeah, and that's when you had the humidor and a few sticks, and so that was a nice time. But it is interesting though, because you do see a lot of that now in sports, even obviously at the professional level. Michael Jordan was the first guy to like pull out a stogie after a game or after a championship. Now you see it in the NFL, in the locker room, Max Crosby, some of the other guys. And the thing that's interesting is that it's dipped down into college now.
Yeah.
I think was it Joe Burrow at LSU that was like maybe the first, after the national championship, you saw him in the locker room smoking a cigar. So not very common at the college level, but you see it more and more.
So I know like Tennessee, Alabama, right? So that's a huge rivalry in the SEC. So whoever wins that game, that's what they do. They have the cigars in the locker room. Is like whoever gets that victory cigar, that's kind of what the trophy is for that game.
Gotcha.
It's been the same thing when I was at Virginia Tech too. Big game against UVA, rivalry in-state game. Like those guys enjoy themselves. Very last game of the season after they got to win. So now you're right. It's penetrating through all levels of sports.
Yeah.
Get a little more heat.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody like me that's just not learning or kind of dipping my toe in the cigar world, what would be some advice you would give somebody who might be a little intimidated by all the different options, choices? What do I need to buy? What shouldn't I buy? What's kind of like the starter pack for just somebody entering this realm of smoke-filled rooms?
So go to a shop, a shop with a lounge, and then typically the person working there, the tobacconist, they'll be able to recommend you something. And typically you want to start kind of in the mild to medium cigars because there's less nicotine content. That way you won't get sick from the nicotine. And then from there, they'll just kind of recommend you different ones. And then you can figure out what you like. So really you just got to smoke a lot.
You just got to get started. I mean, I think that's the main thing. And the thing that I've learned, doing this for a while and going to a lot of lounges is that everyone has opinions and everyone thinks their opinion is right. But really, the right answer is what you like or what you identify with, right? Like, Chris and I may have a similar palate and profile, but he may like a cigar I don't like, right? And sometimes it's not even the cigar. It's what I had to drink earlier, what I had to eat earlier, what my mood is, right? So there's so many things that can impact your experience with that cigar at that moment, right? So, just take all the advice in stride, but really just enjoy it and come to realize what you like and what you don't. That's kind of the way to think about it.
So I'm big into the food, as you can tell. Love snacks. So I've gotten into pairing wines with particular foods.
Mm-hmm.
Is cigars in that same space where you can do that with drinks or with food?
Yeah, but I don't know about food, but drinks, yeah.
Okay.
Popular one is bourbon,
All right.
rum, and champagne and wine. So it's very popular with alcohol.
Which ones would you pair, like with this one right here, that has more of a chocolate kind of undertone? What would you pair with it as far as drink?
There you go.
Maybe like a bourbon. I don't know about a specific one. Myself, I prefer rum,
Okay.
and I like a little bit of a sweeter rum.
Okay.
And so that's just my preference. But really, it's also one of those things where you just got to kind of try different pairings until you find something that you like.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm not sure about the food. But for me, like I don't drink a lot of bourbon. But when I'm smoking a cigar, I will if I'm at home, I'll almost always have some sort of bourbon.
Gotcha.
And the couple that I like, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, Blanton's. I just tried the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, which was really good. And then here at Rebellion, they tend to carry one of my favorites, Elmer T. Lee. Beautiful bourbon. So if I'm here and having a cigar and they have it, that's like my go-to. But I'm more of I usually match my cigar with bourbon. Don't think much about the food or wine or anything along those lines. And you said you're more of you said rum?
Yeah, rum or I don't drink all the time, so typically it's just a Coke or tea or sometimes something sweet. So if you guys are smoking cigars and you kind of feel that nicotine sickness, it'll be like nausea and you just feel lightheaded. Having sugar helps with that. So anything sugary helps with nicotine sickness.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and Chris can tell some pretty bad stories. Always eat before you have a cigar, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
That should have been in the pre-show notes.
Chris bring him some bread.
And I've definitely thrown up from cigars. So so that is one of the symptoms of like nicotine sickness is like like really bad nausea.
Okay.
And then from that, you can throw up. And that's definitely happened to me.
Well, but that's smoking on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
With a full-bodied cigar, right?
And retro inhaling.
And retro inhaling.
That we talked about earlier in the program.
Trifecta.
Heavy in that smoke.
So then it goes back to my statement I had before. Like you guys don't necessarily think about what food would pair well with it, but you need to have something in your system.
Yeah.
All right. Is it more something like, is it just crackers or is it a steak or is something like you need something heavy in your stomach before you start?
Heavy. I think steak is a good one.
Okay.
Yeah. Something just heavy and you just feel like satiated.
Okay.
And you just feel a little full, and then you smoke a cigar. So and
now
then
we're cooking.
there are such things as like breakfast cigars you have for breakfast, and then like after dinner cigars. Typically, those after dinner cigars are stronger ones.
Okay.
Always, whenever I saw somebody smoking a cigar, it was kind of just like it was their moment to decompress, right? So after a long week or kind of a little bit of downtime, it was just their 30 minutes of time to themselves where nothing else mattered. So I was always intrigued because I'm like, oh, they look like they having a moment, right? It ain't many words. They just kind of chilling. You see them chewing on it a long time before they can light it in an appropriate space. So, I think this kind of represents a lot of just, relaxing times with people you enjoy or just a lot of reflection.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely, for me, that's my experience, right? Like, if I could, I'd have a cigar at the end of every day. And the more stressful the day, the more I'm like jonesing towards the end to go out on the patio or go to the lounge, right? And so it definitely is a stress reliever. But for me, it's an opportunity to decompress and just quiet out a lot of the noise. Like during the day, calls, back-to-back calls, like people constantly needing something. But at the end of the day, after dinner, just knowing that you'll have that time to yourself where it's just quiet and you can just decompress. And I'm sure that looks different for everyone, right? Like,
no doubt.
Yeah, I think that probably looks different for everyone. So when you think about like, we'd love to know more about both your experiences, right? Like, when I grew up, coming up, I played football, right? Both my brothers played football. They both went to college on athletic scholarships. Like, at what point did you know that either you were passionate for football or you knew it was going to be your game or you knew it was going to be something you wanted to do long term? Just curious about what that looked like.
Well, for me, like kind of in the space you're in, I have two older brothers. They both went to school without my parents having to pay. So my oldest brother played baseball and then went to the Air Force. Mm-hmm. My second brother played football at the HBCU.
Okay.
So I knew me being the baby, I couldn't be the one to make mom and dad have to pay. So
I was that guy, by the way.
Oh, don't be that guy. It worked out well, though. So for me, like I focused on my schoolwork, because that was mandatory in our household. Mm-hmm. Did every sport known, soccer, basketball, wrestling. Didn't like baseball too long. I joined the Air Force, ROTC in high school, just trying to find a way for my parents to not have to play. pay for me to go to school. And then I got into football my sophomore year. Freshman year I got hurt. Sophomore year I played well.
Okay.
Got moved up to varsity at the end of the season.
Okay.
And then my junior year, that's when like all the offers came in. I was like, well, it's going to work out. And it's kind of just snowballed from there for me.
You know, I was always a bigger kid, right? So it was big, could run. So football was a natural sport, right?
Okay.
It was a sport where it celebrated physicality. You didn't have to walk on eggshells. But back then we played it all, right? So we played football in the street. We played basketball. I didn't play organized sports until I got to the 7th grade. There was no organized basketball. You played in the yard. You played with your neighbors and stuff like that. So got into middle school, high school, you know, didn't even know it was a possibility, right? Until kind of my sophomore year where you start seeing these coaches come around and they want to talk to you, right?
Yeah.
So I can remember vividly as a sophomore, the University of Miami being at my high school and saying, hey, we're going to offer you a scholarship. I'm like, really? Like, just like that? Like, do you? And so from there, you know, obviously school was a huge part of that, being able to get into college and have the tools you need to be successful. And so from there, I was fortunate enough to have good mentors around me to just kind of show me the ropes both on and off the field. And,
Sure.
you know, was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship to play at the University of Georgia for 4 years and then got drafted here in 2006 for legendary Coach Gibbs, which was a huge blessing and experience to play for and to play my entire career here in Washington. So football's been good to me.
Yeah.
It's taught me a lot just about life and how to be a man long, you know, past the game. And so now with me coaching high school football is really an exciting because I've been through all these different levels as a coach, as a player, now as a father with my younger sons. And so it's just cool to see people kind of, you know, continue and go through the path you kind of went on and also to help people to achieve their goals because that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I know a couple of things are interested in that. I mean, the first thing, like I said, I mean, I grew up in a household also, again, both my brothers, super athletic, right? Brother played football at Wake Forest. My other brother ran track at Georgetown. And then there was me, right? And so, but I can remember vividly in middle school when my brother was, I think, a junior in high school, my oldest brother, and the coaches started to come to the house. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like they're coming and they're talking to him about how he would fit into their program, talking to him about, you know, how he'll have an opportunity early. And so the conversations were interesting because my oldest brother, although he was very athletic, he was very smart, and he wanted to have that perfect combination of a good football experience, right, but a degree that he could use in case he couldn't play football, right? And so he ended up going to Wake Forest because he was focused more on the education than on the football. But again, it was amazing times because there were coaches coming in and out of the house, right? And, you know, I'm in 7th grade and I'm out playing in the front yard. And it dawned on me, I'm like, I probably should be playing football right now, right? So I started playing football. I think I started playing football in the 6th grade.
Okay.
Just the local rec league in 6th grade. And then in 7th grade, my dad convinced me to go out for my middle school football team. I'm like, I've only been playing a year. I don't have, you know, experience like the rest of these kids. So I go out for the team in the 7th grade. I make the team, which I'm amazed by. And the first game of the first season, I think I was 3rd string left tackle or something, right? The first game, our first offensive series, the starting left tackle like breaks his finger. Like it was just broken.
All right.
They put the 2nd string guy in.
Uh-oh.
And he lasted 2 plays. They took him out.
Game time, baby. Let's
So
go.
now they're looking at me, and I don't even know where my helmet is, right? Because I'm 3rd string, right? So I get in the game. I'm starting left tackle. I don't even think I'm 5 feet tall at that point. I hadn't hit a growth spurt or anything. My dad's like 20 minutes late to the game. He gets to the game, and he sees me play, and he's like, what's going on? And I just look at him, shrug my shoulders, and go right back in. But, you know, that was like the beginning of, you know, my experience. And I enjoyed it. I played partially through high school and then just decided it wasn't for me. But, you know, I admire guys that can just grind it out and just excel in those areas.
Well, so I mentioned before, like it kind of snowballed after junior year as far as the offers, and I ended up going to Virginia Tech. But it was still in the mindset too, like I got to make sure I walk out of here with my degree.
Yeah.
Like that's first and foremost priority. And the college kind of fell in the same parameters as high school, where I'm focusing on school, make sure I get my degree, playing ball, continue to get better, to where junior year came up again.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, instead of schools coming to see you in high school and see your parents, now is agents starting to talk. And be like, you know what, this might could really happen. And then senior year kind of just got overwhelming from that standpoint too. So I honestly don't believe until like senior year when it really kicked in that, you know, this is the path
Yeah.
that was kind of laid out for me. And that's kind of took full advantage of it. But it's kind of fun to see the parallels of everything. I'm saying the same thing you were talking about and the same thing the kid was talking about as far as him going through the process and now working with his kids. Like it just kind of goes in the circle of life with that standpoint.
Yeah, yeah. Kedric, how about you? Like, so when you started at University of Georgia, like when, like, I'm sure you were super athletic all throughout, but was there a defining moment in college when you knew that it was your path and you were going to go into the NFL, or what did that look like?
It was kind of weird. So for me, when I went to the Georgia, I'm like, am I staying 4 or 3, right? That was kind of my mindset, right? Was fortunate enough to start as a true freshman at the University of Georgia.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, so I'm at the University of Georgia, I'm starting, playing against some really good players. That year we won the SEC championship. So I'm like, oh man, I'm on the path, right? It wasn't until after, you know, and then, you know, for people who don't know, you know, after you play your bowl game in college, a lot of people go train for the NFL Combine, so they don't do the spring semester. So a lot of really good football players, all SEC guys, all Americans, you know, they get their cars and they get their lines of credit and they coming back to the school in a couple months and just living life, right? Yeah. And you're like, man, one day, right? And these are really good football players. And they don't get drafted. They don't make a roster. And I'm like, these guys started at the University of Georgia. This NFL thing is for real.
Facts.
So I'm sitting up here like, oh, snap. Like, this might not be the path. You know, this might just be a dead end, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you go back to your morals, right? Like I was always like, you know, you don't worry about the things you can't control. You work your tail off. You be resilient. You know, you be good to people because it's the right thing to do. But the longer I was in college, the more there's a whole lot less people who don't make it than do make it,
Sure.
right? And I'm saying, like, man, these guys are dudes, and they won't even sniff, you know. Or if they do play, they play a year and then they're done, right?
Yeah.
So it was really just a humbling experience of like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, really use this opportunity for one, education, obviously, but two, to enjoy the moment and just become the best version of myself that I can be. And I kind of kept that mentality all the way through.
Sure.
In the NFL, right? And so when people say, well, Kedric, how did you play so long? I said, listen, like, there's a ton of talent everywhere, right? The talent is everybody's talent. To the guy that just gets invited to a camp is an elite, a world-class athlete. But it was just, can I outwork the person beside me? 2, can I be trustworthy? Can the coaches trust me? And 3, can I just be a good teammate? You know what I mean? And I think with that mindset and understanding, like, I earned the right to be in the NFL, but I also appreciated it at the same time, right? And so I never want to take anything for granted. And in my mind, there's only so many seats at that table, right? And so I wouldn't be doing my seat any justice if I didn't make somebody work for it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I approached it. But, you know, as a young player, I'm like, oh, definitely I'm going to be in the NFL. Like, this is going to be great. Like, where's the jacket? You know what I'm saying? But the farther I got into it, and then even being done now and just saying, like, man, you did what? Like, it's almost surreal. Even in college, like, I watch college games now and I've seen them playing in the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl, which I played in all this stuff. I'm like, man, these guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I'm even in that in the conversation of those guys, because I just think it's a deep down appreciation for how truly blessed I was to really live out a childhood dream, and to be able to support my family doing it.
Well, I think, I mean, a couple of things ring true for me. And first, both you guys mentioned it, is that absolutely tremendously talented athletically. But both of these guys, I can tell you wholeheartedly, are men off the field, right? Like, I remember, like, I've known Kedric for 20 years. I remember I remember in his off season, he would watch my daughter, like while I was at work, right? Like his daughter and my daughter were together, and Kedric would be taking care of them every day, right? And so that's something you don't see and no one ever talks about. But when you talk about somebody that's athletically gifted and is a good person, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, even Darryl, like, so even a couple years ago when my daughter lived out she lived out in San Jose by herself. You know, we live on the East Coast. She was out on the West Coast by herself. Darryl lived in the same area where my daughter lived, and she became part of their family. Yep. So, you know, when you talk about, you know, loving the sport of football and loving the guys that play, certainly everyone loves that. But I like the fact that a lot of these guys don't get their due attention for being good men and good people, right? And so I always like to make certain that people are aware of that as well.
So I got a great story. So we beat Dallas in 2006, right? Sean Taylor blocks the field goal. He picks it up, runs around 50 yards, gets face mask. They move it up 15 yards. We kick a game-winning field goal. I mean, it was wide right and hooked back into the fairway, and the town goes crazy, right? And everybody's like, you know, and I mean, it's cigars everywhere in the locker room. Everybody's happy, right? And everybody's like, oh, what you do after the game? Well, my oldest daughter had a project she had to turn in. So we had to do a 3x5 poster board on the Louisiana Purchase that night. So that was how I celebrated with a double stack from Wendy's and with stencils drawing out the Louisiana Purchase. And that's when you had to print your pictures out and put it out and line it. So that's a memory I'll never forget. And I think we still have that poster board in our closet. Yeah. Because I'm like, this is real life. Like, we just won a huge game, but yet and still, this project's due. Money.
Priorities, yeah.
We got to get this in, and I got to take her to school because it won't fit on the bus.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. So, you know, spending it's not common for a player to play his entire career in one organization. What does that look like, and how were you fortunate enough to have that opportunity, you know, have a stable family life, not having to move and relocate? What does that look like, and how do you navigate that piece of it?
I mean, I was truly fortunate not to be able to be here as long as I was. You know, that was the easy part, right? My kids were born down the street. We stayed here. They didn't have to change schools, didn't have to move home. So their routine, which was really important to me, was always intact, right? Yeah. From, you know, the organizational standpoint, right, new coaches, new general manager, new players, right, it's like, you know, I'm somebody who's, you know, I probably started half my career, probably was a rotational player the other half. And so it was just trying to maximize my role no matter what that was. If I was called to play 50 plays a game, let's go. If I was called to play 6 and be on all special teams, I was really just looking for an opportunity because, like I said, you know, it was still like, you know, once I made the team, it was like, well, you could be gone tomorrow. Some people that made the team with me, they didn't make the opening day roster. Yeah. So when final touchdown happened on whatever day it was, right? By the time we got to Friday, before we played, you know, whoever we played for the first game, I think it was Minnesota my year, they celebrated like they made the team. They did, but they never made it to the season, right? Yeah. And so seeing that is like, man, you literally could be gone in an instance, right? Yeah. And so every day is an interview. You're constantly being evaluated. Everything you do is watch, everything you say. And by the way, you can do everything right, and it's just somebody that's better, right? And so it was understanding, like, one, don't ever give them a reason. Don't make it easy on them, right? So make it as hard as you can and, you know, add value wherever you can. And so if that's you practicing your tail off, giving a great look on the scout team during the week, coaches appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? And that's just kind of how I approached it. And so whether I was in year 11 or year 2, it was like, I got to go earn a job. And that's why I kind of took pride in that. And so I think just knowing your role, not saying that sometimes I wasn't upset about my situation or thought one thing or another, but I never allowed that to affect how I approach my day in and day out, because I understand this is professional football, right? So we all got feelings, but nobody really cares about them. right? And so at the end of the day, this is something I love to do. I didn't put a criteria on why I only want to play in the NFL if I'm a starter or I'm the 3 technique or I'm, making X number of dollars, right? It was something that I wanted to maximize because I know once it was done, it was over.
Gotcha.
And so that's just kind of how I approached it. So it was just, I think, one, being professional, knowing what to do, being in shape. Obviously, there's a ton of, blessed to do it, you know what I mean?
Sure,
so a lot of people do everything right and never get an opportunity. But at the end of the day, just trying to be all that I can be each and every day.
Yeah. Darryl, what'd that look like for you playing teams, navigating the realities of moving and other organizations, et cetera?
Well, like everybody wasn't as fortunate to play for one organization like Ked. That's always the dream. You want to go in a Ring of Honor and stuff like that. But one thing that my parents always taught me is that your walk is for you, and it's a blessing in every one of them. So for me, I started out in Seattle back in 2006, and I got to be there my first 4 seasons. And then we had some turnover with the coaches, and I ended up getting traded to Philadelphia. So it was against my will, but I got sent to a new team, new opportunity. But it was such a good move because now I was going from being on the West Coast, where I'm a really family-oriented guy. There's mom and dad and 2 other brothers that for those 4 years, like we never could really be on the same page because of 3-hour time difference.
Yeah.
So now getting the chance to come to Philadelphia, where now my mom can drop in on me when she wants to, was a huge blessing there. So 3 good years there, and then had the opportunity to finally become a free agent going into year 8, and got a chance to play for my favorite team growing up in the Redskins at that point in time, now Commanders. So once again, now I'm getting even closer to mom and dad and my siblings and stuff like that, and we got to meet Ked and got to meet you along the way. So 1 year here, then went to Detroit because of relationships that I had made in Philadelphia through my D-line coach.
Okay.
He brought me to Detroit with him and made even more connections. So the D-line coach in Detroit was a high school recruit of my D-line coach that I had in Philadelphia. So they were pretty much family. So I got to be along with them in their circle, just kind of player and how I help myself in practices and in the community and stuff like that. Career continues in year 16 to go to New Orleans. Second time being a true free agent, and then finish up my career in Tampa Bay.
Okay.
So all of those places I was fortunate to go, not necessarily because of my desire. Like I said, you always want to be on the one team. But at each one of those places, I was able to make valuable relationships.
Sure.
And things that were working for my good that I was not even aware of. So flash forward now, I've retired and trying to figure out what it is I want to do in my space.
Yep.
And then coaching comes back around. My first job going to Central Michigan, the special teams coordinator when I played for the Lions back in 2014 was the head coach. You know, I wanted to get into coaching, gave me an olive branch.
Okay.
All right. The next year, Vanderbilt, the special teams assistant coach when I played for Detroit, was the special teams coordinator in Vanderbilt, gave me another olive branch. So now I'm learning a whole other phase of the game for us coaching. And then because of the player and the person that I was when I was at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, my name still carries a lot of weight. So there's an opportunity there back in 2020 where I got to become a D-line coach based off the merit that I had when I was a player and how I handled myself throughout this whole process. 1 year there, relationships come back around again.
Yeah.
The same D-line coach that gave me opportunity in Detroit in 14 and 15 was the D-line coach now in San Francisco. So he hired me there, showed me the ropes for 3 seasons, and then coming here to Washington once again, where we still have our home and family and favorite team growing up. Got opportunity here because my last year in Seattle, the head coach now for the Washington Commanders, Dan Quinn, was my D-line coach there. And the GM that's here now was my GM when I was in San Francisco. So it's a lot of different things that kind of fell into place based off of me having an opportunity to move from team to team and be exposed to new people and new situations every day, and really having a chance to test myself and trust the home training that my parents gave me with different lessons that kind of propelled me and put me in this situation that I am right now as a D-line coach.
Yeah, no, I love to hear these stories because again, when you look at what's popular and what's broadcast a lot of times out in media about NFL professional athletes, the look and feel of what you see is not always the reality of what's occurring, right? So I love to hear stories like yours, Darryl. Love to hear your story, Kedric, because again, you present the different positive side that comes along with the athletic ability, right? And so what you said, through my career, I've focused on, always being ethical, making easy decisions between right and wrong,
Yep.
but also valuing and nurturing relationships, right? And I benefited from that. And it sounds like it doesn't matter which sector you're in or which profession you're in, you can benefit from those strong and nurturing relationships as well.
Yeah.
So that's great. How about what would you say about the difference in culture when you're going from one org to the next org? Not individual teams, but the general feel on how you adjust to culture shifts.
As a player, I think that you have to be able to gauge and read situations.
Gotcha.
For me, it was finding out who was the leadership in those organizations from a player standpoint. The guys that have been there for a long time, that were doing things in the community. 'Cause that was important to me. It seemed like a lot of times those two things went well together. You played well, that means you lasted a long time, and then the guys that really made an impact were affecting the community as well. So I always found those guys on those individual teams. Every team was built differently. Some teams were veteran-laden, like it was when I first got to Seattle, which was great for my development.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that had wives and kids and were in the latter part of their career. So you can see how this thing progresses. When I got to Philadelphia, it was a younger team. So you got to see where I was 4 years ago, and it kind of helped them guys as far as being a leader in that aspect. And then Washington, when I got here, was a good mix of guys and so on and so forth. So I think you just got to always read those situations to find out how to insert yourself. You never want to go into any situation just being dominant or trying to take over. You want to endear yourself to your teammates and to the powers that be.
Sure.
To help play the game the right way.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. I like that. Kedric, how about your transition into coaching? Love to hear about that.
It was, obviously having boys. When my last year was 2016, and had I ain't gonna say a serious injury, but ended up being a career-ending injury with tearing my hamstring off the bone. I just naturally, always, being like you said, when my last year in the NFL, I was 34 years old, right? So I'm in the locker room with people in my position that are 22, 23 years old, right? And they're probably the most unpredictable group in the world. From 18 to 18, the 23-year-old man is like,
100%.
they're like, they're just really emotional, testosterone, aggressive beings, right?
Gotcha.
And so I was fortunate enough, like Tapp said, when I got into the league, the team was old. It was just a bunch of old men. You know what I mean? They had baby seats. They going to the fire station. They got baby seats in their lockers, and hey man, come over here, help me put this bassinet together, right? But they always looked out for me. So guys like Demetric Evans, Cornelius Griffin, Ronaldo Wynn, James Thrash, Antoine Randall,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing I ever wanted for, because if I didn't have a car, hey, take my truck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You need a suit. All right, I got one that'll fit you. Or you know what? The tailor will come measure you. I'll take care of you. So they really looked out for me. You know what I mean? So once I got to that position to where you can, the NFL is just a huge cycle, right? And so you just got to know, you got to go with the ebbs and flows, and you can start to read the tea leaves, and you can tell that, it's just certain times of year where, some things just ain't adding up, or if a guy, if your reps get pulled, or you coming off an injury and they want you to, hey, go out there and that practice, get you this last rep of this practice. Yeah. So anyway, you just try to help guys navigate those situations,
Gotcha.
understanding that football aside, you're still a young man trying to find your way in the world.
Sure.
Right? And so you take this game that has always been really good to you, and you see it coming to an end. That's a real vulnerable situation,
Sure.
right? So I tell people all the time that I think sometimes athletes get judged unfairly, So I said, you're talking about somebody from a young age that is the 1% of the 1% in the world, right?
Sure.
But they're developing a skill set that only works in a place that only has 32 opportunities with 53 spots, and you do practice. So it's long as there's like 17 to 2,000 players in the world that can do this, right? So if you was a doctor or a lawyer and you could no longer work at, let's just say, X hospital, well, you could go to Y hospital and Z hospital, right?
Sure.
Well, the NFL, you don't have that opportunity. It's not like other professional sports. So the realization that you're no longer be able to play the game that you love to play, that you're skilled to play, that is providing for you and your family, it adds a ton of stress on you. And so I know guys who are, Hall of Fame, Pro Bowl, All-Pro type players that would say to the young guys, I don't know how y'all come here every day doing this, not knowing if you're going to make a roster. You know what I mean? So there's no guarantee. Back then, we started in March 15th,
Yep.
right? And you go all the way to the end of cutdown day, not even knowing if you're going to be here.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right? So the mental toughness that takes day in and day out to stay engaged when, I will say I think the NFL has done a great job now of kind of meeting players' mental health needs. But back then it was an iron fist, Jack. It was, they tell you, if you can't do this, you're going to be on a factory scrolling on a boat someplace, right?
Big facts.
And that's, and that was, but that was how they showed love. That's how they wanted you to stay on your P's and Q's,
Stay on your game.
Stay on your game, so on and so forth. So, back to the point of just trying to talk these guys sometimes off the ledge, right? Like, listen, hey, you're not gonna make the team here. It's too many. We got 3 deep, right?
Yeah.
But you're a good player. You can play in this league. So this last preseason game, right, or this joint practice, go out there and put good stuff on tape.
Sure.
Forget about here.
Facts.
Everybody's going to watch this tape, right? So just now's the time for you to be selfish. You only see this opportunity, but there's so many more out there. And then vice versa, some guys start counting numbers and they're like, oh, I'm good here. I'm rolling with the 2s or 3s. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a guy in Baltimore, there's a guy in Dallas
Yep.
that is better than you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? He just didn't sign here, right? So it's just understanding that you have to stay on top of your game, but working them through that, or just stuff off the field. Like, hey, what's your routine, man? Like, you can't play on Sunday and then show up on Tuesday and you ain't did nothing. Like,
Right.
When are you watching tape? When are you watching tape? Not when is the coach watching tape?
When are you doing it on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you
Gotcha.
taking care of your body?
Yeah.
What are you eating? So on and so forth. So you guys got to come up with a plan, because I can remember as a rookie, after about week 4, I couldn't move. Like, I couldn't go up the steps or nothing. I'm like, I got to go practice in 2 days. And so, you got to get your massages. You got to do your physical therapy, your cold tub, so on and so forth. So I think just helping them, really speeding up their process of what it looks like to be a professional, right? Nobody's going to tell you, you're not going to have a training table for all 3 meals. You got to go get your massage therapist. You got to go do the extra things that you need to be able to go out there and play, right? And that's different for everybody, right?
Gotcha.
And so just talking them through that, because it was done to me, right? And so I always looked at that I'm here not only to play, but also to help, because long after your football days are done, you're still a man, right? And so majority of my relationships in some way, shape, or form are because of football, whether it was a teammate, a coach, a player, an athletic trainer, a video person, somebody that worked in the front office, right? And so you always want to, if it's important to you who you are as a person, that's how you present yourself.
Sure.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And so that's how I kind of went about it.
Gotcha. It's very interesting. How about Chris and I, as just, people that watch and love the game, we get a perspective, right? What are some of the things that we don't know that you'd like to share about the NFL experience that we'll never see just by, either going to, like I went to Washington's, the summer camp a couple of times, and that was a great experience. I think Darryl, that's the first time I met you, maybe at one of those camps down in Richmond.
Yep.
And they let fans in. Kedric invited us down, and we spent some time in Richmond during the summer. And we see that, and we see the games. But what are a couple things that you would like people to know about NFL players that they may not see just by watching the game or, being a spectator at the summer camp?
I would say that as players, you get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay.
That's how you can see guys that really go out there and can able to do their job at a high level. Because like Kid mentioned before, like you could be here today and gone tomorrow. And as players, after you get past probably year one, you kind of realize that. It was different when Kid and I came in because it was 3 cuts. So you'll start all camp with like 120 guys, it felt like, guys from NFL Europe and guys got drafted and all this stuff. You're like, oh, this is what's up. It's like college. And then after that first cut, now in your room, it could have started up with 25 guys. Now it's like 17. You're like, well, where'd so-and-so go? So that's kind of when you first started seeing it to where it cuts down. So you start just being aware of what's going on. But honestly, until it happens to you, you don't really know. But you get comfortable staying uncomfortable, just like knowing that things could change dramatically very quickly. And the other thing I would say is that guys that play collegiately and definitely at this level are some of the smartest guys that you will ever meet.
Sure.
A lot of times people have a unfair thought that you just go out there and you play ball. Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Just like Kid touched on, as far as what is your body maintenance? How do you do things to get your body ready to go? More than that, how do you get your body ready to recover from what you already did to get it prepared to go again?
Yeah.
And that's just the body part of it, but the studying, the mental fortitude that it takes you to lock in on an opponent and see what they're doing and try to apply ever-changing game plan week in and week out to help you get the best result as a individual, as a unit, as a team on each Sunday. Like, that's something that really need to be spoken to. Like, these guys are some of the most intellectual guys that you ever think. Now, I'm not saying that you go to any locker room and it's not guys clowning around and having fun, but it just seems like every player that plays at this level, they understand, all right, when do I need to lock in? What do I need to understand and do to go out there and play well?
Perfect.
For me, I think, people come in town and, you got family that wants to come see you play and, they get in on Sunday or whatever and, you go out to eat after the game and, they're like, so what we doing tomorrow? And I'm like, I got to go to work. They're like, where you work at? I got to go to practice. This isn't like, hey, we get out
on Sunday.
This isn't like 4 to 6 and we done.
Right.
Like, what you used to in high school. Like, no, like I wake up at 5:30. I'm in there at 6. I do my treatment. I work out. I eat breakfast. I go to meetings. Go to walkthrough, go to more meetings, go to another walkthrough, go to more meetings, practice, go to more meetings, do more treatment. And so I've been there from 6. I might be walking out the building at 7.
Gotcha.
Monday, Tuesday, you off, Wednesday, Thursdays like that. Those are the hours you put in because that's kind of what it takes. And then you repeat, right? And so I think a lot of people still associate their athletic experiences with professionals.
Gotcha.
As if, we just show up to the game and, we just kind of been out standing around like intramural practice, right? Not understanding, like, man, the time is now.
Yeah. So you're there in season from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on average.
Easy. And then the coaches are there from
13
probably
hours.
4:35 till 10, 11 at night, right?
Gotcha.
Because
Wow.
not only are they there when the player's there, but they're also getting together
When
and
they
playing
go, no doubt.
so that when the player walks in at 7 in the morning, hey, coach, what we got?
They're ready to go. Yeah.
And I think even more so, and what I realize is that, as a coach, you want a good coach. You want somebody that's going to push you because that's a direct reflecting on how you going to provide for your family. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so if a coach does a good job, they're going to be compensated and you're going to be compensated,
Sure.
right? And so, I heard actually Mike Tomlin say this when I was up doing a fellowship program with the Steelers. It was like, no, everybody gonna eat. Like, that's the mentality you have to have. It isn't coach versus player. No, like the same guy signing all our checks, right? So if I don't get you prepared, they're gonna find somebody to get you prepared.
Yeah.
And if you won't get prepared, I'm gonna find somebody that wants to be prepared, right? So understanding that this relationship here is beneficial to both people because we're both a reflection of one another. Yeah. And just the time and the energy and attention to detail. And so everybody has their own genius, you know what I'm saying? So you have people that can write code and you have people that know all this stuff. Well, the professional athlete has its own genius in the way they process information, right? You're talking about a millisecond might be too long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And that's something that's honed and that's skilled, and it just takes a ton of reps. You know, I think some people think, oh, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. Well, so is the county jail. That don't mean they're professional athletes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot of development that takes place, and skill no different than somebody else that went to school for 12 plus years, postgraduate to be where they're at.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a ton of development. It's not just, yes, there's a certain level of God-given ability from that standpoint, but that's the starting point. Yeah. And you got miles and miles and miles to go to be able to be called a professional athlete.
Gotcha. No, we'll go ahead and get ready to wrap up. How about future aspirations? Both are coaching. Where do you see both you guys? Where do you see yourselves in a few years?
For me, the mindset has changed. As a player, like we've alluded to numerous times today, you almost have to think like 2-3 steps in advance.
Sure.
Because of what could happen tomorrow. You're not owed anything. As a coach, unless you just completely do something just off the wall, the length of your contract is where you'll be, whether it's a 1-year deal, whether it's a 2-year deal, you're going to be there. So that kind of gives you a little bit of kind of peace. But for me, with that statement said, I'm focusing on being where my feet are. So right now I'm in a role where I'm the defensive line coach for the Commanders. Mm-hmm. My goal is to be the best damn D-line coach in the league. And with that, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of years, and also, let's not get it confused. Good players make for good coaches.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that when you get guys in your building, whether it be through the draft or free agency or guys that have already been with that organization, when you get there, how can I make each individual person better? I can't cookie cut teach any particular person in that room because we're all different. We all got different God-given talents and abilities and traits and intangibles. So for me, it's about identifying what each individual person has. And it's also probably bigger than the football aspect or that part is meeting these guys where they are. So if I can meet you where you are and build a relationship to where I understand what your why is, why you're playing this game, whatever it may be for, then you can achieve the goal that you want. I can start climbing that ladder to reaching the goal where I want as far as being the best D-line coach in the league, and it just kind of falls in line together. So that's kind of where my space is. Of course, I have stuff down the line I would love to get to, but honestly, like I try my best to have blinders on. Like this is
Just
where my
focus
feet,
in.
this is where my
Focus
feet
in.
are. I'm gonna be the best D-line coach I can be this year.
Gotcha.
And everything else will take care of itself.
Gotcha. How about you, Ken?
For me, obviously I'm coaching high school football as a head coach, and so I have my aspirations on where I want to go and where I want to be, but in knowing that I don't want to lose sight of where I'm at, right? And specifically to high school, I'm trying to develop young men, right?
Sure.
Like I got young men that are, 13 to 14 years old to 18 to 19, right? And so I'd be doing them a disservice if I didn't touch on all aspects of their life, right? Of just how can I help you to become a productive man, right? And so I'm going to use football to teach you things that I know works in football, but also translates into every other aspect of your life. Because the fact of the matter is I'm fortunate enough to be coaching some really good players. So out of the 90 kids that I'm in charge of, 10 to 12 of them will play big time college football, right? But that isn't the measure of how I am as a coach, right? It's the guy who might not have the most stable situation at home. How do we give him what he needs so that when he's done here in high school, he feels prepared to move forward, right? And so instilling those kind of life lessons of, hard work, accountability, resiliency, not letting your emotions as a young person get the best of you, understanding that life isn't fair. But what do you do with the opportunities where you might not see one? How do you carve one out for yourself? So it's really more of just like, I'm mentoring these young people, and I just so happen to be the football coach while I'm doing it. Because understanding that every football coach that I've ever had, from middle school to high school to college, we don't talk about football. How's you and your wife doing? How's your kids doing? Man, I'm so proud of you, X, Y, Z. And so that's really the true reward for me right now, because I'd feel like if it was only about winning and losing football games, really at any level, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Sure.
Because I'm a firm believer in, if you develop the person, the football is the easy part of it.
Gotcha. No, it's very helpful. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate both of you guys sharing. Again, just having an opportunity to have conversations like this that go a little deeper than just what it means to play the game is certainly enlightening for me. Hopefully, it's enlightening for others. I think a great conversation. What are your thoughts on the cigar?
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
What did you taste?
I tasted a little bit of the chocolate you were talking
Okay.
about. I mean, kind of like a, I don't really know how to say it, but it seems really flavorful, not overbearing,
Yep.
Super smooth. Seems like it's burning really clean.
Yeah, I think the Oliva is, again, medium bodied, supposed to be a little sweet, little cedar.
I got a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of cedar, and
Yep.
I guess baking spices. If that
Yeah.
makes any sense?
Cinnamon, nutmeg.
Yeah, I don't know.
My head ain't hurting, so that's
And you don't feel sick, right?
well, I haven't
Not
stood
at all.
up yet. We haven't stood up yet. So.
Now I'd be curious to see how this one pairs with, you said, a bourbon.
Yeah,
That'd be a
bourbon
good
or
one.
just whatever your favorite choice of spirits are.
I like it. Nah, it was really good. Like I said, kind of the same thing you touched on. That chocolate note kind of drew me in, and we had to get it started a couple of times, but it was really smooth, relaxing.
Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and wrap up, guys. Absolutely appreciate it. Kedric, Darryl, appreciate the conversation. Thanks for joining us. We've got, as it relates to podcasts, we've got a number of things coming up very soon that we're pretty excited about. We'll be sharing more information on that soon. A number of really, really great guests we're going to have, and so we look forward to that. Want to wish both you guys the best of luck in upcoming seasons. Kedric at Stonebridge, Darryl with the Commanders. So with that, again, a lot to come in the near future on Burn and Learn, and we look forward to bringing future episodes, and we look forward to having you guys back on.
For sure.
Have a follow-up conversation with that. We'll tell everyone good evening, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thanks for lighting one up with us. That was Stephen Mann. And you've been listening to Burn and Learn. The Cigar Lifestyle Podcast is brought to you by Stogie Hub. Elevate your cigar game. And Access Studios. Access the power of video. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel for exclusive content and hit that subscribe button to stay updated.